something is coming to North America that the vast majority of its inhabitants are entirely unaware of. You see, now it's not a matter of if, but when the power grid collapses completely. And when it does, all of these make-believe, fictitious boogeymen that have been created largely by the prepper and survivalist community, they're going to disappear into thin air and reveal the actual boogeymen that have been there the entire time. In today's video, we're going to highlight this because too many other channels, I believe, are afraid to. It's easy to talk about preparing food, preparing medical supplies, prepping up weapons. That's easy. But the really difficult challenges, the ones that occur between your ears, those are the things many are too afraid to talk about. How many of you remember the song, The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia? If you're a fan of country music or you're in your 40s or 50s, I'm sure you have heard this song. It was made popular by Reba McEntire. It's been recorded by Tanya Tucker, but originally it was recorded by Vicki Lawrence, the woman that played Mama. Now, there's a reason she was the first person to record it. What was that reason? Nobody wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole in 1972. Why? Well, the story was a bit seedy. When you read through the lyrics and you listen to the song, a guy has been working out of town. He comes back into town, stops by the bar to grab a drink on the way home. Bartender looks at him and is kind of uneasy and reveals to him that his wife, that he has left in town, has been catting around, and the bartender himself, one of his great friends, has been partaking in his wife. Now, when the guy gets home, his wife has been ended. Who has ended the unfaithful wife? Well, the little sister of the guy. Now this, as seedy as it was, made it to the airwaves in 1972. You can read that in the wiki here, that it was only Vicki Lawrence that would record it. It was pitched to Cher. It was pitched to Liza Minnelli. It was pitched to a great many different artists who didn't want to touch it because of how controversial the topic was. Yet, 20 years later, in 92, 93, the end of the world arrived in the form of Shania Twain's belly button. Yes, that's right. There was a huge uproar in Nashville when Shania Twain arrived from Canada wearing half shirts and swinging her hips around and singing and doing her little thing. Even though all the way back in 72, 20 years prior, they were singing songs about things that were way, way more controversial than just some girl in a half shirt in the South. Go figure. See, this is the level of delusion that people are under. They think one thing is the case, morality-wise speaking, and the entire opposite is the case. This was the end of the world in 1992. A lot of you, I'm sure, remember this. This is why we talk about psychological operations being the great threat coming to America on this channel. Because people remember the song. They remember the lyrics. They remember Shania Twain, but they don't put it together. And nobody says, hey, wait a minute. How could they have sung about such controversial things way, way, way back when I was a little kid? Most of us were little kids. But then thrown a fit about something as innocent as a belly button. You see, it was all about perception. And that's what we talk about over at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel, identifying things like this, psychological operations like this. About a week ago, showed a video of Jennifer Veterans for Truth, Jennifer LaFontaine. showing how to concealed carry in a way that would be extremely effective because of the distraction level of where she had the weapon holster mounted. And I'm sure a lot of you remember that video. I'm not going to get into that. But it's the point of it, that perception is reality. Perception will always be reality. You see, 2-3 weeks into a survival situation, there aren't going to be people going down into the basement and yelling upstairs, "Hey, honey, we're down to our last 4 pounds of sun-dried essence of butterfly farts. I know how important that is in your recipes. What should we do?" You're not going to hear that. You're not going to hear that. What you're going to see and hear is people depressed out of their minds, stressed out of their minds, wondering, when is it going to end? When is the power going to come back on? When will I be able to get back online, see what's happening in the world, and get my dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin fix? And after a long enough time, without that, it's going to start to feel like a prison, and people will do anything to get out of that prison. People will do anything to get out of any prison, really. There are going to be some very hard, very difficult conversations across a lot of dining room tables about what the future is going to hold and about the plans that have been made. Now, some have taken issue with some of the imagery that I've shown. But really, what you're looking at here is a Bible story. This is about a woman caught in the act of adultery. Now, some would say, "Oh, we don't need to see that." Well, if you're going to read about it in the Bible, why not look at it? Because this is what the men found when they brought the woman before Jesus and said, "Jesus, we caught a woman in the act of adultery. We caught her even in the act. What say you?" The law of Moses says that she should be stoned. Now let's stop for 1 minute and think about this. What if it were you? What if it were you? What if you were the man? What if you were the husband? And this is what you had encountered. You would demand some level of justice, some level of accountability. But what did Jesus do? He looked at all of the men who were going to, according to the law of Moses, stone the woman. And he held them to account instead and said, all of you out there, any of you out there who've ever committed a sin ever in your life, if you ever have, you don't have the right to cast a stone. That's what he said. And they all dropped their stones and left. And then he said unto the woman, "Why are you still here? Why are you still here? Go and sin no more. Neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go and sin no more." Imagine being the husband. Imagine being the husband. You see, the reason I had brought this up, this Bible culture thing, is because so many people in my last video decided, you know what, this disagrees with what my milksop Laodicean modern 21st century money-grubbing preacher taught me. So I'm going to interject my own cultural beliefs into what the Bible said and then explain and then answer why it was perfectly fine to let the woman caught in the act of adultery walk away with just a "go and sin no more." I wonder sometimes if the gender roles had been reversed, if it had been a man caught in adultery and Jesus said just, "Yeah, high five, go and sin no more." I wonder how many modern feminist self-professing Christian women would have bought that and not called, oh, it was a good old boys club. It was a good old boys club. You see, this idea, it bothers people. But it will be the one thing people will gravitate to. Because there is an addiction out there that nobody wants to talk about. And it's that feel-good addiction. It's the idea that I want to be independent and I want to have my own liberty and I want to have my own freedom. And when things go bad and things go ugly, I don't want anything or anybody holding me back. Some might say, how could you possibly forgive? You see, I showed the video image that I did in the way that I did for a reason, because I wanted it to affect people the way it would have affected the victim of that crime. And see what they say then. See what they say then. Romans says, O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me? Who shall deliver me from this life? Was there any record of the woman even asking forgiveness of Jesus? Even though he said, go and sin no more. Even though he said, go and sin no more, she never asked forgiveness of Jesus. They were going to give her the death penalty because that's what the law of Moses said to do. It was the law of Moses that said to do it. Capital punishment. And these days, for every 8 person who's executed, 1 is innocent. You have to wonder sometimes about how things can go from being so good to being so bad so quickly. Many people know the story of Romeo and Juliet. I would advise people to read the story of Hamlet and Ophelia. Doubt thou the stars are fire, doubt that the sun doth move, doubt truth to be a liar, but never doubt I love. Those of you who know the story of Hamlet and Ophelia will wonder what it took to go from that wonderful place to a place that was so much worse. A man with dreams needs a woman with vision. Her perspective, faith, and support will challenge and change his reality. If she doesn't challenge you, then she's no good for you. Men who want to stay ordinary will tell you, don't have expectations of them. Men who want to be great will expect you to push them, pray with them, and invest in them. There was a singer, still is actually, Leanne Womack, who recorded a George Joe song called I'd Rather Have What We Had. Look that one up. I think you might be well informed by it. And watch the movie The Getaway and ask yourself, what would I be willing to forgive? What would I be willing to forgive if forced to see it in so many terms? Would you be willing to forgive? Would you? I'll leave it there. When the lights go out, everything's going to change. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.